Freddie Gray, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, Philando Castile, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Emmett Till, and say her name, Breonna Taylor, for Black women are murdered by racists too. As a Black person, the incidents surrounding each of these individuals were not unique to us and not unique to the United States, and neither were their outcomes. Sadly, mostly consider these American issues, Black American issues at that. In Canada, we too have racist problems, albeit to a lesser extent and based on a different history and different demographics. It's true we too have our DeAndre Campbells and our Andre Locus. But more than these overt forms of racism, Canada has its own uniquely polite and sweet brand of maple syrup type racism. Good afternoon, CIMA Board of Directors and membership. My name is Ian Andre Espinet, and myself and David Click Cox are the co-creators and curators of the CIMA facilitated Breaking Down Racial Barriers series. In May of 2020, the perfect storm of what I've been calling the racial pandemic, created by the murder of George Floyd, COVID isolation, police killings, and the wave of global protests that ensued in response, prompted many to take a deep look at systemic racism in Canada and the huge racial divide in our own country. Companies, industry by industry, started to take a stand against systemic racism. The music and entertainment industry has a long history of monetizing Black culture and creativity, and has been called upon to address the absence of Black representation in both power positions and throughout the industry. So on June 2nd, to show solidarity with protesters, many companies posted a Black square on Instagram with the Blackout Tuesday hashtag, created by two Black women who work for Atlantic Records and Platoon in the States. Almost 15 weeks ago, I had an idea to produce a roundtable with members of the Black community and Black entertainment communities. In speaking to them, I went to my respected peer and friend, David Click Cox, who just came on the screen, a CIMA committee member, and he had an idea. He said, CIMA is a progressive organization. Maybe we can collaborate with them. Understanding that conversations in a silo change nothing, I agreed to the first meeting. The result, as Click so aptly named it in that meeting, was Breaking Down Racial Barriers, a Black-led conversation on anti-Black racism in all aspects of the Canadian music industry. I'm going to hand it over to Click for the next few minutes so he can tell you a little bit about BDRB.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. So over this 10-week series, it was important that we heard from Black professionals. There were 60 people from across our ecosystem that contributed to these discussions. These professionals came from all areas, backgrounds, and different cities. We had speakers coming from Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, Calgary, Vancouver, and myself and Ian thought it was important that we had the proper time to address the areas and issues and challenges that we face in this business, which is why the series was 10 weeks long. It was a lot of work to sit around and really, figure out who would be the right speakers to be in the space and just to prepare it properly. We featured speakers from majors, indie labels, artist managers and business managers, artists themselves. There was journalists. We also had funding organizations, grassroots community organizations, radio hosts, programmers, advertising agencies, video content production companies, music supervisor, lawyer, and publishing areas and sectors of the industry. The topics and discussions were surrounding, systemic and systematic racism, the economics of anti-Black racism in the media and in the spaces that create it, the live music sector, such as promoters, agents, festivals, venues, and more. The creative space, all the way down to ad agencies, to the people creating the ads themselves. Again, a space where Black artists can come and speak about their issues. Representation and what that looks like within the record labels, the streaming companies, the industry associations themselves, and then talking about a very big areas, retention and succession in this music industry. There were many areas of the business that needed to be addressed, and change is definitely going to be needed moving forward, actionable change to reflect a more equitable music industry that all of us, I know, want to see. Some areas that really connected with me and connected with a lot of people throughout the whole series was, talking about representation, the lack of representation in certain spaces. for Black professionals. And another huge area was data. There is no real race data, and it's an area that we really feel needs to be pulled. I'd like to encourage everyone here today to please contribute to any researchers that are asking for this input. It's very important in helping implementing the change that is needed. So, and lastly, I'd like to thank all the organizations that have supported this important series. There was many, I think, around 30 different organizations from across Canada. And I also like to extend a huge thank you to Advance, which is a new Black music business collective. If you don't know about it, please check out www.advancemusic.org. This is an organization that many people from within the industry that we work in, your peers, are coming together to be an advocate, to mentor, and do more within our industry. So lastly, I just want to pass it back to my partner in crime, Ian, who will talk further about our steps and what we're planning to do moving forward.
So the accumulated knowledge from the 10 weeks of the panel discussions will be combined as has been previously stated in a report. This report will be created in consultation with the Black music and entertainment communities and will be disseminated to CIMA's peer and partner organizations. And my hope is that you'll all read the report when it's ready. I hope that you've all watched or will at some time watch the episodes or the new podcast that's coming. But I understand that what one should do and what one actually do are completely different things. And so are the outcomes. And so, you know, one of the outcomes is one that creates change, and the other is one that creates performance. There's been a lot of performance over the last couple of months, and we're cognizant of it. So my hope is that the individuals in this room will lead the charge, that you guys will be the ones to get your peers to sign on to a declaration committing to implementing all or at least as many of the recommendations in the report as possible. For me personally, and Click knows this has always been the focus of this entire exercise. And although Click has told you about some of the findings from the conversations, for me personally, this is the most important thing. There's a process that, like a thought process kind of going around that says, I know what the issues are. I'm Black adjacent. I know one or two Black people, so I don't need to read or watch, right? And because we live in a social media time and a fast information space where we read memes and we read tweets and clickbait news articles, sometimes we mistake these things as work and knowledge. And that's really dangerous, because what happens then is that these things get exchanged for actually doing the work. You know what I mean? So my ask of you today would be to take every single step that you're going to take one step further. And so when you think, I should watch those episodes to see what the Black members of my industry are talking about, try and take it a step further to understand what it is that we're talking about. And when you think, I understand what they're saying, ask yourself, now what am I doing now that I understand? And take the next step. Commit, read, everything that helps you understand. Speak to Black people, read the report. I know it's hard. Adult life is difficult and it takes a lot of time. Just pretend it's an episode of Walking Dead. Trust me, the truths that you're going to see are probably way more scary, you know? And when you move to implement some of the findings in this report, don't stop there. Don't stop and pat yourself on the back. Don't stop and feel guilty. Don't stop to get frustrated. Keep trying. Try to understand why Black people seem to be angry, because frankly, a lot of us are. And everyone should be angry about inequality and exclusion. And realize that if you're not, you too might be a part of the problem. Try not to get frustrated by the anger and take the, I can never do enough. I'm trying my best, but it's never enough approach. This isn't a time for tears, it's a time for action. And the world is watching for this small moment in time. What part will you play in changing history, and what will you tell your grandchildren about the part that you played in it? Dig in and think, now that I've brought these policies to my organizations, my company, my business, have I brought them to myself? You know, look around your rooms, your spaces, constantly assess them. Think at all times about diversity. Then take it a step further. Further than white women, which has been the standard of diversity in the industry for years. take it beyond BIPOC, a step beyond disability, beyond LGBTQ. I'm asking you today to think of all of these things, all of these individuals who have been excluded, and don't forget Black, because there are virtually no spaces. People talk about sports and the number of players on a basketball team or on a football team, but the music industry is much worse in terms of the content that we create and our control in and throughout the pipeline of this music. And think to yourself, right? Any time that you're thinking about these things in your space, when I'm booking my festivals, are there any Black acts? Do my conferences have any Black people on them? Are they only urban Black people? And by the way, that term's dead, is Black music. Because there are Black rock artists, Black country artists, Black jazz artists. And like, frankly, let's be honest, a lot of those music forms in the world, period, crystal clear, are Black music. That includes those forms of music that are the dominant ones in the world, like urban, quote unquote urban, hip hop and R&B, including the acts that become popular and taken away from Black people, the Beyoncés and the Drakes, including the non-Black people that perform these music, the Justin Biebers and the Justin Timberlakes. Keep in mind that before David Guetta and Tiesto were doing EDM, Frankie Knuckles and Derek May were doing club beats in Chicago and Detroit. Led Zeppelin stole most of their best known lyrics from a nearly forgotten Mississippi bluesman named Robert Johnson. And even though Elvis Presley is supposedly the king of rock and roll, it was Big Mama Thornton who first performed Hound Dog, right? So keep these things in mind. And also keep in mind the genres that have been co-opted but sometimes exclude us, such as jazz, rock, and blues. And finally, I'd be remiss to forget the ever so offensive word world music, the genre that refers to everything that's non-European as everything else. And that includes stuff like my, shout out to Trinidad and Tobago at the beginning of the performance. Everything from Afrobeats, because some British DJs wanted to create a genre, and because, well, Paul Simon, right? And I love Paul Simon, but you get my point. At all moments and for every single decision, think about anti-Black racism. Check your biases, your unconscious ones and your conscious ones. The simple things that you do when you look at a resume and you can't pronounce someone's name and think, they're not like me and I may not understand them. And most importantly, go above it. Be in it for the long haul, not just a moment, not just this moment while the world's eyes are watching. And, Tim, you're from the States, but I won't give a moment to 45. But I'm asking everybody to, instead of what he said, stand up and stand in front. In the 10 episodes, one of the things that I've pointed out in almost every episode was the word allyship. And the reason that I pointed it out is because it's such a dangerous concept, because it gives individuals and companies a cookie for doing things that should be done as a matter of common decency, as a matter of human rights, because it's the right thing to do. So I want to leave you guys with that thought, and I'd like to take a moment to thank everyone who's made BDRB possible. Click, you're incredible. CIMA, Sam, Matt, Stewart, and Jenya for all your hard work. Our incredible Black publicist. And that's another thing, put Black people down with your teams. Dalton Higgins and the 60 incredible Black professionals who have contributed and will continue to contribute to the report. And to advance Canada's new Black music collective, salute. And I'd like to give a special thank you to our episode and series sponsors. Thank you to the funders, Ontario Creates Factor and the Government of Canada, Alberta Music Breakout West, Canadian Live Music Association, CMW, the Canadian Music Week, CFM, East Coast Music Association, the Guild of Music Supervisors, the Juno Awards, Manitoba Music, Music Managers Forum of Canada, Music BC, Music Canada, Music New Brunswick, Music Nova Scotia, Music Ontario, and Music PEI, as well as Music Publishers Canada, NCRA, ANREC, and Ontario Creates, and an RBC Music MVP project, as well as SOCA, Unison, and Work in Culture. And the reason that I named all of you guys is because I want to use this as an opportunity to thank you for being ahead of the thought process and taking a chance. But I also want to thank you as the organizations who frankly had the balls to support change with us this far, to be the leaders in your spaces. And I challenge you to sign the declaration that is coming, to commit to implementing the actionable items in the report, and to speaking to your peers and showing the importance of doing the same. I'll leave you in the words of Black American political activist and academic Angela Davis. In a racist society, it's not enough to be non-racist. We have to be anti-racist. We have to be radical. Radical simply means grasping things at the root. You have to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world. And you have to do it all the time. So I'd like to thank everybody for watching BDRB. If you have not, all the episodes except for episode 10 are up now. It'll be up by the end of the day. BDRB.ca. There will be a mailing list coming shortly, and I urge all of you who are in other spaces, who are on the board of directors and other organizations, to bring anti-race bias training into your spaces and to consider things like BDRB in your spaces as well. Okay? Thank you. And again, thanks to CIMA.
Thank you. Thank you.